So, ready to dive into something a little different? We're getting into internet pornography. Yeah, I know, not your typical light reading, but seriously, this is fascinating stuff. We're looking at your brain on porn, well, excerpts anyway, and from the Arabic translation too. The original's in English by Gary Wilson. Basically, it's all about how internet porn affects like our brains, how we act, all of that.
What's really interesting is how the book takes this super sensitive topic, right, and looks at it like scientifically. It's not shying away from potential problems or anything, but it's really focused on explaining the science behind it all without, judging anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And it starts right off the bat with something pretty surprising. Young men and erectile dysfunction. Like, that's not something you'd expect to be common in young guys, right?
Definitely not. It's not something you usually associate with that age group. But the book talks about this urologist, Dr. Tariq Pasha, who noticed this trend with his patients. And guess what he found was a common link? Yep, you got it. Too much internet porn.
Okay, so how are they connected?
So the book argues that internet porn, it's different from traditional porn. It throws a real curveball at the brain, creates what Wilson calls a supernormal stimulus. It's just constant, new stuff all the time, tons of variety, and it's right there at your fingertips.
Okay, break that down for me a bit. What makes internet porn so different?
It's like this perfect recipe for intense, accessible stimulation. See, our brains, they're wired to look for pleasure, for rewards, right? And dopamine, that's the feel-good chemical, is a big part of that whole system. Internet porn, with all its new and exciting content, it just floods your brain with dopamine, way more than you'd get from, like, normal everyday rewards.
So it's like constantly slamming that, like, button in your brain.
Exactly. And that leads us to this whole idea of brain plasticity. Our brains are amazingly adaptable, constantly rewiring themselves based on what we experience. And that's especially true when we're young, like adolescents and young adults.
That's kind of cool when you think about it. Our brains are always learning, always changing.
It is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But this whole adaptability thing, as great as it is, it also has a downside, makes the brain kind of vulnerable. The book argues that when you're constantly exposed to something super stimulating, like internet porn, it can actually rewire the reward pathways in your brain. And then because of that rewiring, your brain starts needing more and more stimulation to get that same feeling of pleasure.
So it's like your brain gets used to being on that high and needs more to get back there.
You got it. And that's where things can get complicated.
This rewiring isn't just about porn, you know? It makes you think about how other things we spend hours on social media, video games, might be shaping our brains too.
That's a crucial point. The book delves into the science behind this rewiring, specifically highlighting the role of a protein called delta-FosB.
Delta what now?
Delta-FosB. It's a protein that accumulates in the brain's reward center with repeated exposure to addictive substances or behaviors, including excessive internet porn consumption.
Okay, so how does this protein play into all of this?
Think of it like this. When you first taste coffee, it's a jolt. But over time, you need more and more to get that same kick. That's delta-FosB at work. In the context of addiction, this buildup can lead to desensitization.
Desensitization. So like you become numb to the things you used to find pleasurable.
Precisely. The brain becomes less responsive, requiring a bigger hit, more intense stimulation to achieve the same level of pleasure. This can lead to a vicious cycle of seeking out increasingly extreme content just to chase that initial high.
Whoa, that's pretty heavy stuff. So we're talking about actual changes in the brain's chemistry and wiring, but what does this look like in real life? The book doesn't just rely on scientific studies, does it?
You're right. It also delves into the real-life experiences of people who believe they've been affected by excessive internet porn use.
Right. The book talks about those online communities, NoFap, Your Brain Rebalanced, Reboot Nation, where people are sharing their stories and trying to quit porn.
And what's striking is the sheer volume and consistency of these reports. People describe a range of negative effects, problems with relationships, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, even sexual dysfunction.
So it's not just about theoretical changes in the brain. These are real people experiencing real consequences in their lives.
Exactly. These stories highlight the potential impact of excessive internet porn use on various aspects of a person's life.
Hearing those stories makes me wonder, what can people actually do about it if they feel stuck in this cycle?
Does the book offer any solutions? It does sound overwhelming, kind of makes you want to chuck your phone out the window, right?
Yeah.
But there's hope, right?
Yeah.
The book doesn't just leave us hanging.
Not at all. Your Brain on Porn lays out some ways to handle all this, like how to manage how much internet porn you're watching and lessen the potential downsides. One thing that pops up a lot is something called the reboot.
Reboot. Okay, now I'm picturing a sci-fi movie. What is that exactly?
Basically, it means taking a break, a full-on break from internet porn. The idea is to give your brain some space to, like, recalibrate, reset how it responds to rewards. Think of it as hitting the reset button on your brain, kind of like you were saying about chucking your phone out the window. Haha.
Intense. But does it actually work?
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence. People in those online communities we talked about, they say rebooting really helped them. They say they feel less anxious, more focused, even their sex drive and performance got better.
Wow, so taking a break from porn can actually help you in other areas of your life?
That's the general idea. But the book makes it clear, rebooting isn't some magic solution. It's one piece of the puzzle, and you gotta look at the bigger picture, figure out what's really driving you to consume so much porn in the first place.
So what kind of things are we talking about here? What are some of those underlying issues?
Think about it. Everyday stuff, too much stress, feeling anxious or depressed, lonely, even just bored out of your mind. These can all be triggers, things that make you want to escape, and internet porn is an easy way to do that.
So it's deeper than just willpower. It's about getting to the root of the problem.
Exactly. And the book talks about other stuff you can do too, like mindfulness. It's about being more aware of those triggers that make you click on that link and then finding healthier ways to deal with them.
Okay, so what does that look like in real life? How do you actually be more mindful?
It could be small stuff like noticing when you're stressed, and instead of going to those websites, you meditate, use a meditation app. Or maybe you make time for things you enjoy, things that make you feel good, naturally working out, being in nature, whatever you're into, spending time with people you like.
So basically giving your brain those good dopamine hits from like real life, not just from a screen.
100%. It's about finding ways to feel good, to feel satisfied, without relying on habits that might be causing problems. This whole conversation, it brings up something super important.
What's that?
This book, Your Brain on Porn, it's not trying to make porn seem evil or anything. It's about giving you the facts so you can make your own informed choices. It even says that for some people, internet porn isn't even an issue. It all depends on your own relationship with it, how it's affecting your life.
So it's not telling everyone to swear off porn completely.
Nope. What it stresses is that if you're aware of the potential risks, if you understand what it's doing in your brain, you can make choices that feel right for you, choices that match your own values, your goals. And if you're finding that it's messing with your relationships, your work, even your mental health, well, maybe it's time to reevaluate your habits.
It's about taking the wheel, not letting your brain drive on autopilot.
Exactly. It's about realizing that our brains, awesome as they are, they're not always on our side. They crave pleasure, they crave those rewards. And the thing is, those rewards, they're everywhere these days, more intense, easier to get than ever before.
It's like we're living in a dopamine drive-through.
You said it. And that's exactly why it's so important to be aware of what we're doing online, how we're spending our time, and to find healthy ways to deal with stress, boredom, all those feelings.
This whole deep dive has been a serious eye-opener. And it's bigger than just internet porn, isn't it? It's about how powerful technology is, how it can actually change our minds, change how we act.
Totally. And at the end of the day, it's about realizing we have a choice. We can choose how we use technology, make sure it's working for us, not the other way around.
This makes me wonder if something that seems harmless, like watching internet porn, if that can have such a big impact, what about all the other stuff we do online? What other digital habits do we need to take a closer look at?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think it's one we all need to be thinking about. Maybe this conversation can be a starting point, a chance to examine our own digital lives and to start making choices that help us live more balanced, more fulfilling lives.